Welcome to our session, Project Finance. We're going to review the assignment. Question number one reads, explain the importance of project finance in the context of developing countries in the sub-Saharan. So what is the importance of project finance? So project finance is important for many reasons. It is important for infrastructure development. So many countries like Zambia face deficits in infrastructure, like road maintenance. So project finance will mobilize huge sums of capital for such projects. It's important also for risk allocation. So they help in appropriate risk allocation between public and private entities. It's important where governments have limited capacity to absorb the financial risk. Um, it's also important for attracting FDI or private investments. So it is through project finance that um, FDI, which emanates from the private uh, sectors like transport, health, will be accelerated. So it also is an off-balance kind of source of financing where sponsors will keep project debts off their balance sheets, so it will preserve their borrowing capacity. Project finance is important for sustainable development because it encourages proper project evaluation and environmental or societal impact assessment. So this will foster sustainable development. Okay. So unless there's anything you would add. So project finance basically is a method where funding or lenders provide financing based on what? On projected cash flows. So it's actually method where lenders will provide financing based on the projected cash flows for a specific project rather than uh, from balance sheets of project sponsors. So the second question was asking us to briefly explain and outline the distinction between project financing and corporate financing. So we talked about the differences between the two based on the basis of lending, the risk, the recourse, the ownership, and the financial structure. So the distinction between the two um, is as follows. So when you're dealing with project finance, the basis of lending is a project's cash flows and assets. Okay, so those are the differences there. Differences is in the base of lending. So in project finance, the lender will consider the cash flows that will be generated by a specific project being financed, along with the assets of the project. So here the expectation is that the project will itself be self-sustaining, whereas in corporate finance, it involves lending based on the entire company's financial strength. So it includes the balance sheet, the existing assets, and overall profitability. The other differences in terms of risk, project finance, the risks associated with the project, like construction delays and the cost of overruns. On the other hand, corporate finance places the entire risk on the parent company. So all liabilities and all risks are placed on the company itself. In terms of recourse, project finance is typically structured on a non-recourse or a limited recourse basis, meaning the lenders have very little or no claim on the parent company's assets. So their claims are limited to the assets and the cash flows of the project itself. Whereas in corporate finance, all loans are provided on full recourse basis. So this means that the parent company, if they default, the lender can pursue repayment from the entire company's asset base. In terms of financial structure, project finance tends to have a high debt to equity ratio and a more complex financial structure. So this is because projects are often capital intensive. Conversely, when I'm dealing with corporate finance, it has a simpler financial structure. So the company raises capital through common means like issuing of corporate bonds or shares. In terms of ownership, project finance has SPVs, which are usually created to own and manage the project. These are special purpose vehicles. So the SPVs are a legal separate entity from sponsoring companies. So it is used to isolate the project's risks. And when dealing with corporate finance, there's no separate legal entity created for financing. So here the project or the business operations are simply part of the existing company structure. So here all financial obligations or assets and liabilities are consolidated into the company's financial statements. All right. Then the third part of it, a sponsor can choose to finance a new project using two alternatives, project finance and corporate finance. So explain why a sponsor may choose project finance. So there are many reasons. Can you share some of them? What are some of the reasons why a sponsor may choose um, project finance over corporate finance? Number one, risk mitigation. So risk is contained within the SPVs. So it insulates the parent company. Secondly, leverage. So high leverage possible as lenders. Okay, so high leverage possible as lenders are confident in the project cash flows. The other reason why a sponsor may choose project finance is off balance sheet. So project debt does not affect the sponsor's financial position. Then the fourth reason is that of limited liability. So what have I said? What are some of the reasons that I've talked about so far? Number one,
It limits the sponsor's financial risk. The project's debt is ring financed.
okay.
When it's no, Aubrey, you can go ahead.
So,
Okay, of course, the off-balance sheet issue and the limited liability that they have on the equity that they have provided.
okay. Then in terms of a limited liability, what would you say? In project finance, the sponsor's exposure is limited to what? The amount of equity or guarantees that they have committed in the SPV. So if the project fails to perform, what happens? The sponsor will fail to bear the full bent losses, particularly we're dealing with a non-recourse or limited recourse structure where lenders don't pursue the sponsor's other assets. So limited liability is a very crucial aspect for sponsors who wish to engage in high risk or capital intensive ventures. Then can you comment on the last point in terms of investor appeal? Why would a sponsor choose project finance over corporate finance with regards to investor appeal? Can you explain this in your own understanding? Okay, so in terms of investor appeal, project finance structures are usually more attractive to certain types of investors and to certain types of financial institutions that we usually specialize in project-based or infrastructure-based investments. So the investors will prefer something more transparent, something more predictable in cash flows, and it has contractual protections. It has a ring fenced around the investments through these SPVs. So in many cases, having a clearly defined or independently managed project will increase the confidence that investors may have because to facilitate issues like syndication among multiple financiers and may even attract development from financial institutions, FDIs, or export agencies, ECAs, that typically do not fund general corporate projects. Okay, so part D, describe the purpose of stakeholder agreement and outline the main issues covered in the stakeholder agreement. What is the purpose of a stakeholder agreement and what are some of the issues outlined in there? Quickly. What is stakeholder agreement and what is outlined in it? Okay, here's a guide.
From what I researched, the shareholders agreement is more like a contract among companies in order to, it comes about in order to maintain harmony and order.
Okay. Between which parties? Yes, rightly said. Um it's a shareholder agreement. It's a legally binding document which governs the relationships between shareholders in a company or in a project, particularly when I'm dealing with SPV. It is used in mainly project finance for number one, governing relationships between stakeholders. So these agreements have in them embedded rules and expectations for how shareholders will interact, how they collaborate, and how it will also help ensure that all the parties that are aligned in their understanding of project governance and goals are met. So it serves as a foundational document that outlines how shareholders will conduct themselves throughout the project. Secondly, it defines the rights, duties, and obligations of each shareholder. Okay, this is included in the document, so it includes the financial commitment, their involvement in decision making, and operational roles, and how liabilities will be shared. It also clarifies this to prevent misunderstandings, to ensure that parties are aware of their contractual commitments. Also, it's there to prevent disputes and ensure there's smooth project operation. So it lays down agreed upon mechanisms for decision making and resolving conflicts. So the shareholder agreements will help minimize disputes and ensure project continuity. So it acts as a reference point in times of disagreement and it reduces the need for litigation or arbitration. So the main issues that are covered in this agreement are equity contributions. So in this section, it looks at how much each shareholder is required to contribute and also the timing of those contributions. It also looks at the voting rights. It defines how decisions are made within the company, what matters will require voting and the threshold, and also profit sharing issues. It has clauses on how profits and losses must be shared among the shareholders, and also how equity follow-ups in terms of contribution ratios should be made. It also has a board composition where it outlines the appointment and removal procedures of directors, including how many uh, board seats each member is entitled to and their voting power. It also has an exit strategy which defines the procedures for selling or transferring these shares, including the rights of the existing shareholders. And it also has dispute resolutions, which is a critical part of the agreement. So this clause will establish a clear mechanism for resolving conflicts. Conflicts are there, and also looks at how negotiation and mediation and arbitration and litigation is handled. It also helps avoiding costly and time-consuming legal battles. Lastly, but not the least, the dividend policy. So this is an agreement that includes the terms related to how and when dividends will be declared and paid. So it outlines whether dividends will be distributed regularly or they'll be retained for reinvestment. So this is what is involved there. All right. Are we together?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay. Now comes to
thank you.
this part. Any questions or any additions to what you researched on? Okay, so now we're given information as follows. So a company A borrows 50 million at an effective interest rate of 9% per annum. Insurance company uses the money to invest in a capital project that pays 6 million per annum, payable half yearly in arrears for 20 years. The income from the project is used to repay the loan. Once the loan is repaid, the company A can use interest at an effective interest rate of 7% per annum. Calculate the discounted payback period for this investment. And part B, calculate the accumulated profit the insurance company will have made at the end of the project. Okay, so let's identify what has been given in this and what we need to calculate. Let's take our time. So what has been given in here? One, we have the loan amount, which is how much?
Which is 50 million.
Okay, 50 million.
And the interest at which the insurance company borrowed from the bank, which is 9%.
So the loan interest effective per annum 9%. What else? We also have
And we are also told that the same insurance company also lent the money where it was earning this is the 6 million per annum, receiving half a year. So
for me, how much is
for
paid?
20 years.
Okay. So how much is paid? Um, so it's paid half yearly
So
in
so the same
arrears.
yes,
So meaning 3
in
million
20
every
years.
6 months, isn't it?
3
Yes,
million, yes.
So I mean the project, and what's the project duration?
it's 20 years.
20.
20 years. So how many periodic payments are we looking at?
40.
40 payments, okay? Then after the loan is repaid, um, what interest is earned per annum?
So
Pardon?
it moved to 7%.
7%.
7%.
All right, 7%. Okay, so how do we calculate the part A? Want to calculate the discounted payback? How do we calculate the discounted payback? So the parameters that have been given now are stipulated. So we have identified the given data here. So I want to calculate what's the formula for payback. So we've been given this data here. Okay, it's correct. So now, how do we calculate the discounted payback? What formula do we use? Yes, I need you to participate. So we're going to consider the formula of an annuity. What's the formula for the present value annuity?
Uh, it's okay. The payment
Okay.
brackets 1 minus 1 minus, we open the brackets, 1 plus R, we close the bracket, maybe negative period
The amount of
over the
loan,
interest.
the payment,
So payment, then the brackets, yes, then you put 1, then you open you minus, you subtract,
1,
you put a negative, you subtract, then you introduce the brackets, then 1 plus R,
Mm-hmm.
you close the bracket to the power negative N,
Mm-hmm.
then over R.
Good. All right. So what are we given so far? What is our payment in this regard? And our ARA, what is our periodic payment?
Plus,
3 million.
3 million, correct? So our payment will be 3 million. This will be our EMT. What is our ARA?
9%.
9%.
so
All right.
meaning we divide it by 2.
So um, we're going to divide it by 2. But again, we need to understand that what's the formula for the effective annual rate? Effective annual rate is given by what?
Uh,
1 plus ARA over M. The power M minus what? Minus 1, right? So we have 9%, right? And it's semi-annual. So 2 power 2 minus 1. Okay. What are we going to get when we calculate that? 4.403%. I'll confirm it. What are you getting when you calculate that? 0.04403. So the rate we're going to use about 4.4%. So now our periodic payment here about 3 million 1.04403. The power n, what is our n? What is our n?
Our N is 40.
N is 40, correct? Zero, 4.403. Okay, so let's calculate the annuity factor there. Let me calculate the annuity factor in the brackets there. Pardon? 18? Is the 18 point something?
Yeah,
18
it's 18.6, 18.659 or
point,
18.66.
okay, yes. So 18.66. So this will be what? Then value will be 3 times 18.66. What do we get there? Hmm.
55.9 or 55.97.
55.97. So, firstly, this tells us that our present value for the future cash flows is 56 or 55, which is enough to repay our 50 million loan. Okay, so firstly, we are secure. Now, we now next need to discount the 3 million payment until the cumulative present value of the 50 million is done. So we have to discount this 3 million payment until the cumulative present value is equal to the 50 million. So we can calculate a discounted value of the 3 million payment, and we keep summing up until it hits 50 million. So it has a long cut and a shortcut. So our are we together so far?
Yes.
So
Yes.
we'll be calculating the present values until the cumulative values of those present values will hit the um the 50 million. So I don't know, what did you find as a as a payback period? So when you do that, it's a long it will take you to almost um 12 years. Okay, it will give you 24 periods somewhere there. So you calculate the present value, which is future value 1 plus r at the power t. Okay, so our present value is equal to what? Future value 1 plus r at the power t. So we're going to calculate the present values of each. So 3 million over the rate, which is what? 1.04403. The power what? Power time. So we start doing it from year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. So you're going to have something like this. So you keep adding the cumulative values of the first year. It's going to give you 3 over the power 1. Since this is year 1, will give you about 2.8 million. So that is that. Year 2, when you divide that, is going to give you 2.75 million. When you add that, you get 5 million. Year 3, you're going to get 2.6 million. When you add to that, you get 8 million. Year 4, you're going to get 2 million. When you add it, you get 2.7 until you go down. We're looking at a value that will hit what? It will hit first exit the 50 million. Okay, let's calculate the payback. So when you do that, it will take you to somewhere period 23, which will give you plus 1.8. It will give you approximately 49. Period 24, it will give you 1.13 million, which will give you approximately what? 50. So this approximately gives us our payback period of about 24 periods. When divided by 2, it will take us to 12 um, years. So 24 half years, which takes us to about 12 years. Okay, so the loan is repaid in 12 years. The remaining period, are we together so far?
Yes.
We lost. That is one way. I don't know how you did it in your own context. But firstly, that's the procedure. So this is how you calculate the discounted payback period for this investment.
So just there, Colin. So there's no any other shorter way of just using the formula, since maybe looking at the number of months that were given, there were just too many. Maybe in an exam for you to
Um,
calculate that.
there is a shorter way, Okay, but this one is straightforward. It's just that the periods were long. There is a
Yeah,
shorter way.
yes.
I don't know. How did you do it, Musa?
Um, like I explained, this is one question that I struggled with.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay.
Because we're doing today, actually, we're meeting him for calculations. So he just gave us to research these questions. So today, that's when we are learning all the most of the calculations that are still remaining.
Okay. What's the lecturer's name?
Dr. Kunda, Lewis Kunda.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so I would love to also take you through how to do annuities and break them down because, again, what I'm explaining may seem a little bit complex because I haven't broken down other lessons that will help to communicate in understanding this. So I've tried to explain it in a simpler way I could um, reduce it for you. Okay, but again, um, maybe after you learn, then I can take you through. If you're going to meet him today, what time are you meeting him up?
17:30.